Hi, my name is Joel, and today we're going to look at the difference between where and having in SQL. So let's get right into it. First of all, we're going to look at the syntax. For where, we're going to select a certain column or several columns from a table, and we're going to apply a where condition, which is essentially an if statement where it sort of takes only the certain elements that pass its condition. For having, it's going to follow the same first two steps where we're going to select a column or several columns from a table. However, this time we're going to insert group by, and group by is really the key element here that's going to give us the difference between where and having. More on that later. And then we'll have the having statement, which is also a sort of conditional code that serves to filter out certain entries from our table. Let's look at an example. So for where, let's say we have an example table called employee, where each employee has an ID, a last name, salary, gender, and job title. So for this table, let's say we want to select the ID, okay, from employees, that's the table, that have a salary of less than 50,000. So this is the where conditional statement, salary less than 50,000. So we'll look here, Smith has a salary of less than 50,000, Paul does not, Hansen does, and Avidan has a salary of over 50,000. So we see that Smith and Hansen are the only ones that are going to be selected from this where statement, right? The other two are going to be basically deleted from the table. So what we end up with is employee IDs 1 and 3, because if you remember, we just selected the ID. If we wanted to, we could select the entire row, or say like the ID and the last name, but in this example we just selected the ID, right? So we're going to give the ID of 1 and 3, which is the ID of people with less than 50,000 salary, right? Simple enough. Now let's look at having. So let's say this time we have an example of students, okay? Student ID 1 is in 3 different courses. They're in math, computer science, and science. They're gender male, and they're the 3rd year of studies, right? Student ID 2 is in English and history. They're female, and then their 1st year. And student number 3 is in databases, math, technology, programming, and engineering. They're a male, and then their 4th year. So here we apply a similar thing. We select an ID, but this time it's going to be slightly different in our select. We're going to use an aggregate function where we count the number of courses that they're in, basically. And we're going to say that as, we're going to basically give that the name of courses. We're selecting again from the student table, except this time we're grouping by ID. Now basically the functionality of this group by statement here is that we're wanting to remove duplicate tuples. So in our final table, if say we select people who have courses greater than 2, right? ID number 1 is in here 3 times, and it's true that they're going to have over 2 courses in all 3 of these cases, right? So we don't want the same entry 3 different times, and same with number 3, ID number 3. We don't want them to be in the table 5 times, right? So this is why we use the group by. It basically gets rid of duplicate tuples so that we can have a more streamlined table like this, where we just have the student ID and the courses. And the important difference to note here between where and having is that we can apply having to an aggregate function such as this, whereas where we cannot use an aggregate function. And secondly, we have the inclusion of the group by. So if we had used where in a similar example like this, we wouldn't be getting rid of the duplicate tuples. Alright, so in summary, we have where versus having, the similarities between them. They're both used to filter data. They both have select and from, if you remember from here, select and from at the start. And they use some condition to remove unwanted tuples from the data set. Some differences between them is that having is used after group by, where if you don't include group by, having will do the same as where, whereas where is used before group by. And having works with aggregates, whereas where does not. Essentially, having is acting on the group data, while where is acting on the individual rows and filtering each one, right? And that's basically the difference. Thanks for watching.